The Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and your local cable provider presents Cable Reports. Join us now as Cable Reports brings you up to date on current issues facing the Commonwealth through discussions with your local legislators and other policymakers from across Virginia.
From the General Assembly and the City of Richmond, I'm Woody Evans for Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Comcast, connecting Virginians to their government. We're so pleased to have two members of the House of Delegates with us today. Delegate Riley Ingram, good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, Woody.
And Delegate LaCherice Aird. Wonderful to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Congratulations on being a newly elected member of the Virginia House of Delegates. I understand that you hold a distinction as being the youngest female delegate ever elected. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I do very proudly hold that distinguished title along with being a delegate for the 63rd District, and it's a really exciting time, I think, to be elected to the body, and it gives me the honor to sort of represent women in that way, and specifically younger women in that way. I believe that sometimes you need to see it to know that it's possible, and I think that I'm living proof of that for many.
But you're not inexperienced in terms of the House of Delegates. You have worked here before, have you not?
That's exactly right. By far, it does not sort of speak to my experience. I had the privilege of serving as a legislative aide for then Delegate Rosalind Dance for almost 5 years, and so it's a bit different now being the person who makes final decisions, but it gives me familiarity with the flow and process of moving legislation through the bodies.
Tell us a little bit about your district and your campaign and what you were hearing from your constituents then and what you are hearing now.
So I represent the 63rd District, which includes all of the city of Petersburg, parts of Hopewell, parts of Prince George, the southern tip of Chesterfield, Ettrick and Matoka, and parts of Dinwiddie. My campaign started out as a primary with 4 other individuals, proudly succeeded in that race with 40% of the vote. And at that time, really, the primary concern of my constituents had been education, jobs and opportunities for those who need it most, health care, and just trying to make the quality of life better for all people. For this particular session, I did a pre-legislative survey to speak about specific issues that would be addressed during this session to get more of specific feedback regarding what the priorities were, and really those stayed in sync with what I was hearing while campaigning. And so for me, staying true to education, jobs, and health care are those items that I'm keeping at the top of my priority list.
Great. And Delegate Ingram, I understand that for the first time in many years, you had a contested election.
Yes, I did for the first time, Woody, in 20 years. But we worked hard, and in fact, I met with my opponent after the election was over, and we had breakfast together, and she said, I really didn't think you would work that hard. And I told her, I said, well, you know, I had to work in order to be here to represent the people, and I told her that she ruined my summer because I didn't go anywhere. But anyway, we had a laugh, and she's a good person, she really is. And like I said, but it's this job, Woody, we're put here to represent the people to the best of our ability, and that's what I try to do, and I try to do what the people want me to do. Because I feel like, just like Larice, we're here to represent the people, and that's what I do, and that's what we both do, and we try to, so many of the ideas that come to us are from the people that we represent, just like I have a little bill that, and I didn't realize it was going to have all the controversy that it has about deep frying seafood and chicken or pork chops or whatever in the same oil. And so this one lady in Hopewell, I first had heard about it from someone in Henrico County about 4 years ago, but I didn't hear any more, so I left it alone. But then this lady in Hopewell said that she had been in the emergency room 2 times because of that. And this this restaurant in Hopewell, K&L Barbecue, they have, I was asking him about it, and his name is Kenny, and I said, Kenny, listen, this is causing some controversy because I want to have a separate fryer for seafood. And he said, Riley, come back here. And he took me back in the kitchen, and this little restaurant there in Hopewell has 4 deep fryers that they use. We'll probably amend it so that, you know, what we will do is have it so that they can either have a separate fryer, say 2 fryers, or we'll have a disclosure on the menu or somewhere where people can see that they use the same oil. It used to be a problem with peanut oil, but I don't think any of them use peanut oil anymore because of allergic to different things on peanut oil. But that's part of what we do is we listen to the people, and a lot of bills that I put in are by request from the constituents that I represent. And Woody, another bill is, and I did not know this, but this gentleman said that he was in his car riding in the subdivision, and this kid, he said probably about 7 or 8 years old, had a bathing suit on, and this little old, they call it that little John Deere. The girls have the little Barbie Jeep, okay? It's a little battery powered, and he said that the kid turned right in front of him on the road, and he said that he thinks that they should be not be there unless a parent or someone was with them, because this kid was going to the swimming pool, and that's where he was going. So I put a bill in to try to combat that. I don't know how it's going to work out. I don't know if it'll go anywhere or not, but I put down there by request.
So public safety and health relating to potential allergies someone may have to seafood. Yes. These toy cars, so to speak, can become a hazard to some people.
Right, that's correct.
And I'd have to agree with Delegate Ingram that we take a great deal of effort to make sure that we are introducing legislation that is in line with what our constituents want. So primarily during the session, having our constituents communicate with us is so important because we are addressing so many different types of measures. So for me in particular, I am introducing legislation on behalf of my sheriff, on behalf of the city of Hopewell, but also for those measures that I'm not personally introducing. Co-patroning allows us to get at our priorities or those issues that we have heard from our constituents on and still be supportive of those measures trying to get through.
Now I understand the city of Hopewell has a big anniversary this year. Talk to us a little bit about that.
That's exactly right.
100 years. Hopewell was first incorporated in 1916, and this is their 100th year. And as most people know, Hopewell back then was a thriving community. I mean, you talk about guns and things, but I mean, back then Hopewell was a rowdy place, so to speak. and they had, DuPont had a big plant there during the war, and back during World War I. And this was, they were a big cotton plant there, and there were 30-some thousand people in the city of Hopewell. And then once the war was over and DuPont closed down, it went back down to little or nothing, 5,000 or 6,000 people. It wasn't many there at all. And then it's come back. Now Hopewell has about 22,800 people, something like that. But it's quite an event for the little city of Hopewell.
Tell us a little bit about your committee assignments and how that's going to help you serve your constituency.
So fortunately, I was appointed this session to the Committee on Health, Welfare, and Institutions, also the General Laws Committee, and the Committee on Finance. I believe that setting a strong foundation in those areas will allow me to not only get a stronger expertise, like I said before, in healthcare for HWI, but in general laws. That's sort of that committee where all sorts of bills pass through when it's a catch-all, if you will. And so that's going to give me a great deal of background and history on a lot of those measures that aren't attributed to one of those other committees. And so for those unique pieces of legislation, I'll have a bit, I would say, enough information to be dangerous, if you will, to ask the right questions and know where to go from. And finance has just been an exceptional committee so far because, you know, appropriations spends the money and the finance committee is finding the money. And so understanding the way those two committees work together in tandem has been a great learning experience. And I'm happy to be at the table for all three of those to be, I think, addressing meaningful pieces of legislation.
Now, you mentioned Health, Welfare, and Institutions Committee. I believe you have some legislation dealing with behavioral health. You want to discuss that?
Yes, that's correct. I think a lot of what we do, again, is on behalf of our constituents, but in this particular case, my House Bill 646 was at the request of the agency, but it's a cost savings measure. It will allow that department to have to submit one less report. So currently, they have to submit a report biannually to the General Assembly, but that report also appears in the Appropriations Act. So having it appear twice is just a not a good use of their resources. And so that bill eliminates one of those reports so that we're only getting the information once and requiring the staff to only do that work one time around.
Great. Delegate, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that Delegate is exactly right on co-patron a lot of legislation, because Kurt Cox, for example, Kurt is a majority leader in the House. He has a bill in for the Northern Virginia and for Hampton Roads for the Veterans Care Center that is really needed. So we're co-patrons on that bill to try to get that here in Virginia to help the veterans. We are very veteran friendly here in Virginia, and we try to help the veterans to get jobs and you know, what I mean by that is because just like in education, I don't think that, I personally do not feel, Woody, that college is for everyone, okay? And I feel that way because plumbers, we need electricians, we need people to run machines, we need these type of skills out there in the workplace. And plumbers, electricians, all these people, they make real good money. And these are skilled jobs that need to be filled. And I think that a lot of the times the veterans, you know, if they operate machinery or a bulldozer or a crane or something like that, then I think that we should try to get them into the workplace and help them all we can also.
As a matter of fact, someone returning from a theater of war these days may have expertise as a medic.
Right.
And I believe our junior colleges will give people credit for the experience they have had abroad towards a certificate if they want to become an emergency medical technician, for
That is
example.
exactly right. My full-time background is in higher education, and I'm an administrator at Richard Bland College of William and Mary. And our particular two-year college, in addition to the community colleges, are certainly trying to expand the pathways to credentials so that you have a better chance of becoming employed. And whether that's by means of a trade program or by taking your experience by way of military service and giving you a credential to say, this certifies that I have received this particular training and it's equivalent to this in the civilian employment market. And so I think that the colleges, in addition to policy-wise, we're all moving forward on that front to make sure that if you have the skills and abilities, you can have some sort of certification that will allow you to be able to get employed by means of that.
So balancing those students who want to pursue an education either at the junior college level or at institutions of higher learning in science, technology,
That's right.
engineering, and math, don't leave out health and the arts either, is
right.
important, but we want to make sure that there are students who, for whatever reason, don't need to or who don't want to attend
Absolutely.
college, and they obviously are essential in terms of building a workforce here in the state of Virginia.
That's exactly right, and I think the other part of that is you can't overlook the fact that student loan debt is also another criteria that people are taking into consideration when deciding which path they want to take, and you sort of have to become entrepreneurial in the road that you take to higher ed, and so if you can get that trade certification right now and work, and then possibly decide to attend college at a later point in time, or if it's just by way of that trade is good enough for you, it's up to us to sort of make sure there are multiple pathways depending on especially where you are in different parts of the state and which path you want to pursue.
And you know, Woody, we, in representing the people, I send out a questionnaire every year. It's Christmas time. It's like a Christmas card, but it's a threefold, and they can return back to me. I send out questions, and I don't try to send leading. I don't put leading questions. I put down questions where I really want to know how they feel. And of course, texting and driving is a big issue. And give you an example that these. You know, I did not put the bill in, but I'm definitely in support of the bill because I was on 295. I came across Enon, around Enon Bridge. I'm in the left lane, left far lane, and there's 3 lanes, and this car is in the middle lane. Well, that car comes, that's not going the speed limit. I'm in the left lane, and I'm going by, and it came over at least 3 feet into my lane, so I put on brakes and backed up and started around again, came over again. So I backed up, went around the car on the right-hand side. This lady was there just texting like this, and Woody, that is so dangerous because not only is it endangering her life, but her life, they're endangering my life too and everyone else's because, you know, if any time that is being done, it's just really a real hazard and it's a real thing. And it's against the law, but it needs to be enforced more, and I think the penalty needs to be greater too.
And understand that type of distraction is as bad as someone who may be under the influence of alcohol or drugs while they're driving.
Yeah. I would have to agree with that.
Yeah.
K through 12, it's all where it begins, it's the foundation.
Absolutely.
How are we doing? I know that the governor's budget includes additional monies for K through 12. Talk to us about the need to bring our local school districts up to where they were back from 2007.
I'd have to say that I have to commend the governor for the effort that he certainly is making in increasing funding for our K through 12 schools, and particularly in my district, this includes the city of Petersburg, where there's a great deal of opportunity. So in addition to the monies that he has available, I also have a budget amendment so that the city of Petersburg's public schools may receive additional funding for year-round schools, because we've already shown that with having that initiative in place for 1 year, it's the metrics have shown that it's made great progress for the students and allowing them to increase their pieces that they're being measured by. And so I want to make sure as the representative that, you know, we are doing as much as we possibly can to strengthen that and execute on that progress in as much as possible.
And you know, Woody, that's interesting because in a lot of the other countries, overseas, Taiwan, Turkey, different places, they have year-round school. They have mandatory English in the 4th grade.
Wow.
And the reason they do that is because it's a global economy,
That's right.
and they want their people to be able to
competitive.
speak English and be competitive. So we need to do a lot in education. I know it does take money, and the governor has put the money there for this, and I hope that we are able to keep it there.
And also, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I think that we talked a lot about, you know, the credentialing and the different pathways, but the crux of the matter is it starts, like you said, with your education in as early as pre-K to kindergarten. So we have to make sure that our young children are getting the strong foundation that they need so that they can have those pathways that they can choose from, because otherwise you are taking the time to try and get them up to speed. And when you talk to employers about, basic fundamental principles, if you have them and if you don't, you go back to what you're getting in the early stages, and you have to have that.
And of course, remedial education can be very expensive in a lot of different ways. As a matter of fact, I understand the majority leader is pursuing additional funding for pre-K, as Delegate Aird has indicated. Is that something that's important these days, you think?
I think that we need to set a foundation. If it's just like anybody, when it comes to pre-K, first, second, third, fourth grade, it is a known fact that if you get a good foundation, as you go up in the grades, it becomes much easier. Years ago, I remember, of course I'm older, but years ago, Woody, if you did not get to that level, they actually would hold you back. You're seeing now in school, a lot of times they will promote the student when the student has not reached the level they need to reach here. And back, like I said, this is going back years ago, but years ago they used to talk to the parents, and the parents would be involved. A lot of the problem that we have today, one of the gentlemen that works in our office there, he is like a school monitor. And this just gives you an example. This kid, he was kicking and screaming, did not want to get on the bus. He takes the child, puts him on the bus, puts him in the back of the bus. He actually runs Woody to the front of the bus to get off the bus so the bus driver can shut the door. Do you know that child, this is just an example, the bus came back. Okay, after it made all his rounds, bus came back. There was only one child on the bus. It was this kid. So Ronnie asked the driver, what's wrong? And she said it was nobody there to take the child. Woody, that's what, and it was the reason the child didn't want to go home is because the child knew it was no one there for the child. This is a problem, and this is something we need to look at to see what we can try to do to help the child and the parents to understand the responsibility that's there, either there or through a sister or brother or grandmother or grandfather or something. But this doesn't just happen. This happened in Hopewell, but it doesn't happen just in Hopewell. It happens all over. Right. And we have to look at that because a lot of times these young people, it's not their fault. A lot of times it's because of the environment that they're in. So we need to look at that and see if there's something that we can do.
And I would have to agree and say that in as much as the policy aspect is important, we have to continue to have the community conversation and make it a collaborative effort with faith-based organization, with nonprofits. So we have one angle, but it's not the only approach that we have to take. It definitely has to be collaborative to really get to the root of the need that's there.
Did you hear anything during your campaign, or are you continue to hear anything about continued needs to implement the reforms for the standards of learning?
That is certainly a very hot topic issue. I think not just for my district, but across the entire state. And so I am certainly listening closely to my constituents and my school districts to make sure that I am taking the right stance on that policy as different measures and approaches are being proposed to see how we will actually come out of that particular issue.
And I understand that in the governor's budget, at least in the second year, there would be a pay raise for teachers, but that has to be matched by local jurisdictions, does it not?
By local government, that's right.
So what kind of challenges does that present?
Well, you have to figure that there's no question the teachers, in my opinion, teachers are definitely underpaid. There's no question about it because however, having said that, you figure that every time if we put a 2% increase in pay in our budget, that does not necessarily mean that the locality is going to match that 2% to give them that increase in pay. And because that and that is a problem because some localities may be able to afford it with no problem.
Right.
And then in another area, another locality, they may have a problem in meeting that 2%. So Woody, it's true. It is something that we need to look at, because when we put that out there, it's not a mandate, but once you put that out there, those teachers in the locality are looking for that increase in pay.
Sure. The economy in your district and throughout the Commonwealth, the governor talks about the need to transition to a new Virginia economy, wean our way away from the federal government. How do we do that? Obviously, there are a lot of private employers in your respective districts, but we need to bring more. How do we do that?
I think it's, as Delegate Ingram alluded to a bit earlier in the conversation, that we have to make our students, our citizens, as competitive as possible. And I think that we're doing that by being able to attract businesses to our districts by saying, we have the employees that you need to actually fulfill those jobs that you have, and we can show you that we do by X, Y, and Z training that we are making sure that they have access to.
And Woody, you know, a lot of times, just like we'll go to different functions for manufacturing or what have you, and there are jobs out there right now, the plants, I mean, so many jobs out there now for electricians, plumbers, things like that, that are not filled, but skilled workers, because they do not have a training. Now, the community colleges are doing a great job of helping to train these people, but there is definitely a shortage.
Now, isn't there a program called, is it Go Virginia, that
Yes.
puts together veterans with employers to meet that need?
Yes, and that is that's been very successful in the Commonwealth here, and also the governor did. He has a program now. We're the only state in the United States that he has set a program that we will have no homeless veterans in the state of Virginia to help them. Now, of course, there are some, very few, but there are some that live, they want to be that way. In other words, that's their life and that's what they want to be. But anyone in the Commonwealth of Virginia that is homeless, they should not be. And I think we need to do everything we can, especially for the veterans.
Now, you also have some legislation to help Riley and myself if we want to vote absentee.
Yes, well, I hope you will come and testify to that in the committee, because I have submitted legislation to say that if you're 65 years of age, that you will have the option to vote absentee, that should be listed as a reason. And I think that in as many ways that we can make voting easier, especially if you're seasoned, if you will, then we should certainly policy-wise try and do that.
Well, I am definitely seasoned.
Well, we're going to have to leave it at that. It's been a pleasure having you both, and continue to do the good work on behalf of your constituents, and good luck in the next 50 or so odd days.
Thank you so much again for having me.
Good to see you, Delegate Riley Ingram and Delegate LaSharice Aird.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Comcast. Until next time, I'm Woody Evans.
Mm-hmm.